In this video, we are exposing the 4 absolute worst Caterpillar dozers that industry professionals, seasoned master mechanics, and deeply frustrated owners warn you to avoid at all costs. We aren't talking about a squeaky seat or a radio that doesn't pick up a signal. We are talking about fundamental, catastrophic failures in design, engineering, and logic. Machines that were sold as the next big thing but ended up being nothing more than a giant yellow anchor for your balance sheet. These are the machines that turn a profitable subdivision project into a legal battle and drain your fuel tanks and bank accounts faster than a blown hydraulic line in a sandstorm. And you will definitely want to stick around for our #1 pick. It was a dozer that promised a technological revolution, a machine so advanced that it ended up being its own worst enemy, leaving owners with repair bills that look more like international phone numbers. This isn't just a list for the fans, it's a tactical guide to protect your business, your uptime, and your sanity. If you're looking to buy used iron, pay close attention. This is the script the dealerships don't want you to hear. Coming in at #4 is the Caterpillar D5M XL. On paper, the D5M was supposed to be the perfect evolution. Released in the mid-90s to replace the legendary D5H, it was meant to be the ultimate utility dozer. It featured Caterpillar's signature high-drive sprocket design, giving it that big dozer look in a package small enough for finish work and versatile enough for site prep. The biggest selling point? The fingertip control, or FTC system. Caterpillar told operators they could now steer and shift the machine with just their left hand, reducing fatigue and making the 12-hour day fly by. But while the operators' hands were resting, the owners' heads were spinning. The D5M became a case study in why you shouldn't overcomplicate a simple machine. The early FTC systems were a total nightmare of electronic gremlins. These machines were plagued by sensor failures that would suddenly drop the transmission into neutral, or even worse, lock one track while the other kept pushing. Imagine trying to perform a delicate finish grade near a concrete foundation or a steep drop-off, and your dozer suddenly decides to pivot 90 degrees on its own because a magnetic sensor got a bit of dust on it. Mechanics grew to hate the D5M because of the spiderweb wiring harnesses. Troubleshooting an intermittent electrical fault on these units could take days of shop time at $150 an hour. You'd replace a solenoid only to find out the computer was getting a ghost signal from a frayed wire buried 6 inches deep in the belly pan mud. By the time Caterpillar ironed out the issues with the subsequent D5N, the M series had already gained a reputation as a machine that was too smart for its own good and too fragile for the real world. If you find a deal on a D5M today, remember, you aren't just buying a dozer, you're buying an endless puzzle that only a technician with a $3,000 laptop can solve. At #3, we have the early Tier 4 Caterpillar D6N. Now, the D6N is generally considered a fantastic machine if you have the right year. But when the EPA's Tier 4 emission standards hit the industry, Caterpillar, like many other manufacturers, was forced to rush technology to market that simply wasn't ready for the brutal vibrations, heat, and dust of a real construction site. The early D6N Tier 4 models became the poster child for limp mode misery. The Achilles heel of this machine was the diesel particulate filter, or DPF, and the exhaust gas recirculation systems. In theory, these systems scrub the exhaust to make it cleaner than the air the operator is breathing. In practice, they turned a $300,000 dozer into a high-maintenance diva. Owners reported that these machines spent more time in a regeneration cycle than they did actually pushing dirt. A forced regen requires the machine to sit idle while it burns off soot at extreme temperatures. If the regen fails or is interrupted by a minor sensor glitch, the computer puts the machine into a D-rate or limp mode, cutting your power by 50% or more. Contractors were losing entire days of productivity because a $200 pressure sensor in the exhaust stack failed, telling the computer the engine was choking. One owner on a heavy equipment forum famously stated, I'm not paying a $5,000 monthly note on a Dozer so it can sit in the corner and breathe into a paper bag. The cost of downtime is the hidden killer in the construction business, and the early D6N Tier 4 models were silent assassins for many small firms. Unless the machine you're looking at has been retrofitted with the absolute latest software and updated hardware, these early Tier 4 units are a gamble that rarely pays off in the long run. Coming in at number 2 is the Caterpillar D3C Series III. To the uninitiated, this looks like a great entry-level cat. It's small, it's easy to transport on a standard trailer, and it carries that prestigious logo that usually means high resale value. But the Series 3 models from the late 90s and early 2000s hold a dark secret. They weren't built to the same heavy-duty standards as their bigger brothers. The D3C Series III used a traditional oval track design, lacking the high drive sprocket that makes most Caterpillar Dozers so durable in rocky or muddy conditions. But the real problem was the final drives. In the world of Dozers, the final drive is what actually turns the tracks. It's the muscle. On the D3C Series III, that muscle was more like a weak tendon. The seals on these final drives were notoriously prone to leaking. Because the machine is small, the oil capacity in the final drive is minimal. If a seal starts leaking in the morning and the operator doesn't catch it during the pre-shift walk-around, the drive will be bone dry by noon. By 2 o'clock, the internal gears have turned themselves into iron filings. A single final drive replacement on a D3C can cost upwards of $10,000 to $12,000. For a machine that might only be worth $25,000 on the used market, that's a total loss scenario. Mechanics often refer to these as disposable dozers. They were designed to compete on price with cheaper, lower-tier brands, and in doing so, Caterpillar sacrificed the very over-engineering that made them famous. If you're a hobby farmer looking to move some snow, a D3C might be fine, but if you're trying to run a professional excavating business, this budget cat will likely put you in the red before you even finish your first retention pond. And here it is, the #1 absolute worst Caterpillar Dozer you can buy if you value your financial health, the D7E Electric Drive. When Caterpillar unveiled the D7E, they didn't just claim it was a new dozer, they claimed it was the future of the entire industry. By removing the traditional torque converter and transmission and replacing them with a massive diesel-powered generator and 2 electric propulsion motors, Caterpillar promised a 25% increase in fuel efficiency and infinitely variable speed control. It was marketed as the hybrid of the dirt world. But the D7E proved that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. The problem with the D7E isn't that it doesn't work, it's what happens when it stops working. In a traditional dozer, if the transmission goes, you can find a rebuilt unit or have a local transmission shop tear it down. In a D7E, you aren't dealing with gears and clutches, you're dealing with high-voltage inverters, liquid-cooled power electronics, and massive electric motors. These components are staggeringly expensive. We are talking about repair bills that can easily exceed $70,000 for a single major electrical component failure. Furthermore, the D7E created a dealer monopoly. Because the system is so specialized and carries 600 volts of potentially lethal electricity, your local independent mechanic won't touch it. You are tethered to the dealership's schedule, their proprietary diagnostic tools, and their premium labor rates. As one veteran shop foreman put it, the D7E is a masterpiece of engineering, but a catastrophe for ownership. It's the only dozer I know where a software glitch can cost you as much as a new pickup truck. It was a machine built for the green requirements of massive government contracts, but for the average contractor, it's a high-tech liability. It's our #1 pick because it represents the ultimate iron trap, a machine that saves your $5 an hour in fuel only to hit you with a $50,000 repair bill 3 years later. Because the system is so specialized and carries 600 volts of potentially lethal electricity, your local independent mechanic won't touch it. You are tethered to the dealership's schedule, their proprietary diagnostic tools, and their premium labor rates. As one veteran shop foreman put it, the D7E is a masterpiece of engineering, but a catastrophe for ownership. It's the only dozer I know where a software glitch can cost you as much as a new pickup truck. It was a machine built for the green requirements of massive government contracts, but for the average contractor, it's a high-tech liability. It's our #1 pick because it represents the ultimate iron trap, a machine that saves your $5 an hour in fuel only to hit you with a $50,000 repair bill 3 years later. The lesson here isn't that Caterpillar is a bad brand, far from it. They still produce some of the best earth-moving equipment in the world, but these 4 machines serve as a powerful, rusting reminder that even the best engineers can lose their way. Whether it's rushing to meet impossible emissions standards, trying to build a budget machine for the masses, or getting lost in the future of electric drives, mistakes happen. Before you drop 6 figures on a piece of yellow iron, do your homework. Talk to the guys who have grease under their fingernails and a grudge against the engineering department. Because in this business, the only thing more expensive than a dozer is a dozer that won't push. Thanks for